The deep hum of the U.S. Frontier's engines echoed through the bridge as Commander Jack Miller gazed at the stars on the main screen. After decades of work, humans had finally created ships that could travel faster than light. The Frontier was humanity's first real deep space vessel, and Jack felt the weight of that responsibility every day. "Commander, we're picking up unusual energy readings," said Lieutenant Samantha Ward from her tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen as she worked. "It's like nothing we've seen before." Jack walked over to her station. "Natural phenomenon?" "No, sir," she replied. "The pattern is too regular. I think it's artificial." Jack nodded and turned to his communications officer. "Lisa, broadcast standard greeting messages on all frequencies." "Yes, sir," Officer Lisa Peterson said. The crew waited in silence. 15 minutes later, a strange symbol appeared on the main screen. It shifted and changed into words they could understand. "They're responding to our greeting," Lisa said, sounding surprised. "They call themselves the Exilians." The next few hours were a blur of activity as the Frontier made official first contact with the alien civilization. The Exilians sent a large vessel to meet them. It was 5 times the size of the Frontier and shaped like a pointed star with smooth, silver surfaces. "They're requesting permission to send over representatives," Lisa said. "Granted," Jack replied. "Tell the crew to prepare for our first alien visitors." The Exilians were tall beings with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. Their leader introduced himself as Sub-Commander Vexler of the Exilian Empire. He spoke perfect English, explaining that their computers had quickly analyzed human language from the broadcasts. "Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly," Vexler said during their meeting in the ship's conference room. "Most races take thousands of years to develop such technology after discovering spaceflight." Jack smiled. "Humans have always been quick learners." The Exilians invited Jack and his senior officers to visit their ship for a formal welcome. Before leaving, Jack pulled his second-in-command aside. "Alan, something doesn't feel right," he told Lieutenant Commander Alan Carter. "Keep the ship on yellow alert. If anything happens, follow Emergency Protocol 7. "You think they're hostile?" Alan asked quietly. "I hope not," Jack replied. "But they seemed too interested in our weapon systems during the tour." On the Exilian ship, Jack and his team were led through grand hallways to a massive room where alien officials waited. The walls displayed moving images of planets and stars that Jack guessed were part of their empire. While they talked, Jack noticed Samantha looking uncomfortable. She caught his eye and subtly tapped her wrist device twice, their signal for danger. "Your independent development of quantum shielding is most impressive," said a new Exilian who entered the room. Unlike the others, he wore elaborate armor with red markings. "I am Grand Admiral Zex Tor." Jack felt the tension in the room change. The friendly atmosphere disappeared. "We find it concerning that a young species has developed such advanced military technology," Zex Tor continued. "The safety of the Empire must be protected." Back on the Frontier, Alan received an urgent message from their sensors operator. "Sir, the Exilian ship is powering up weapons, and 6 more vessels just appeared from behind the moon." "Red alert," Alan ordered. "Shields up. Prepare emergency jump coordinates and get ready to retrieve our people." On the alien ship, Jack saw the guards moving to block the exits. "It seems our hospitality is at an end," Zex Tor said coldly. "Your species represents a potential threat to the established order." Jack pressed a hidden button on his uniform. "We came in peace." "Peace is only possible through submission," the Grand Admiral replied. "The Exilian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. We will not allow primitive humans to upset that balance." Alarms suddenly blared throughout the Exilian ship as the Frontier fired precision shots at the vessel's sensor arrays. In the confusion, Jack and half his team fought their way to the shuttle bay, while Samantha led the others to a different escape route. The battle for humanity's future had begun, and the Exilians were about to learn that humans were anything but primitive. Alan Carter gripped the command chair as the U.S. frontier shook from another hit. The Exilian ships surrounded them, firing energy weapons that lit up space with blue light. Shields at 60%. Officer Danny Hayes called out from his station. His hands moved quickly over the controls, rerouting power to keep the shields from failing. "Keep us moving," Alan ordered. "Don't let them predict our path." The frontier spun and dived, moving in ways the Exilians had never seen before. Most space battles in the galaxy followed strict patterns and formations. The humans ignored these rules, flying in what seemed like chaos. "Sir, I'm picking up 2 shuttles leaving the Exilian flagship," said the sensor operator. "One has Commander Miller's beacon." "Cover those shuttles," Alan commanded. "Kate, now would be a good time for your surprise." Chief Engineer Kate Brooks smiled from her station. "Launching drones now, sir." 10 small unmanned ships shot out from hidden compartments on the frontier. The drones were Kate's secret project. Small, fast, and nearly invisible to sensors. They zoomed toward the Exilian ships, attaching to their hulls. "What are these devices?" demanded an Exilian captain over the communication channel. "This is not proper warfare." The drones activated, scrambling the Exilians' targeting systems. The alien ships began firing at empty space while the frontier moved to rescue the shuttles. In his shuttle, Jack Miller watched the battle through the small window. Samantha Ward piloted skillfully, avoiding enemy fire. "The Exilians fight like they're following a textbook," Samantha said as she made a tight turn. "They expect us to do the same." Jack nodded. "That gives us an advantage. They've probably never faced anyone who fights differently." The shuttle bay doors opened as they approached the frontier. Once inside, Jack ran to the bridge with the officers who had escaped with him. "Alan, status report," Jack called as he entered the bridge. "Shields holding, but we're outnumbered 6-1. Alan replied, standing to give the command chair back to Jack. "Kate's drones are working for now, but they're already adapting." Jack took command again. "Samantha, what did you learn on their ship?" Samantha moved to her tactical station. "Their ships have a weak spot where the power conduits connect to the weapon systems. It's small, but a direct hit could disable them temporarily." "Target those spots," Jack ordered. "Lisa, did you get any useful data from their communications?" Lisa Peterson nodded from her station. "Yes, sir. They're calling for reinforcements. And I intercepted something else. They're planning a full attack on Earth. They see us as a serious threat." Jack's face hardened. "We need to warn Earth. Prepare to jump to light speed." One of the Exilian ships moved to block their escape route. Danny Hayes called out, "Commander, I think I can do something with our shields." "Do it," Jack ordered. Danny redirected energy from the shields, turning the defensive system into a weapon. The energy pulse hit the Exilian ship, briefly disabling its systems. "Now," Jack commanded, "get us out of here." The Frontier's engines roared as it accelerated to light speed, escaping the Exilian trap. The bridge crew cheered, but Jack remained serious. "Don't celebrate yet," he said. "We just made an enemy of the biggest empire in the galaxy." "But we survived, sir," Kate said. "They didn't expect that." Jack nodded. "And that's our advantage. They've ruled so long they've forgotten how to face something new." Jack looked at the star map showing the long journey back to Earth. "We have to reach home before they do. Earth needs to prepare." "For what, sir?" Alan asked. "For war," Jack replied. "But we'll fight it our way, not theirs." The Frontier sped through space toward Earth, carrying a warning of the coming invasion. Behind them, Grand Admiral Zex Tor stood on his bridge, watching the empty space where the human ship had been. "These humans," Zex Tor said to his officers, "they do not fight according to any known doctrine. Prepare the Armada. We will crush them before they become a real threat." What the Grand Admiral didn't understand was that it was already too late. Humanity had just shown they could not be defeated so easily. The leaders of Earth sat in a large meeting room, their faces serious as they watched the video from the U.S. frontier. Commander Jack Miller had just finished explaining the Exilian threat. "You're telling us an alien empire is coming to attack Earth?" asked the United States President. "And we have 6 months to prepare." Jack nodded. "Yes, Mom. The Exilians see us as a threat because we develop technology too quickly. They want to stop us before we become stronger." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Admiral Olivia Russell stood up. She was a small woman with gray hair and the most combat experience of anyone in the room. "We need to unite," she said firmly. "This isn't about countries anymore. This is about the survival of our species." Within days, the Terran Defense Alliance was formed. Admiral Russell was put in charge of preparing Earth for the coming invasion. She immediately called Jack to her new office at the TDA headquarters. "Commander Miller, I need your help," she said. "You've seen how these aliens fight. We need to use that knowledge." Jack nodded. "They fight by the book, Admiral. They expect everyone to follow the same rules of space combat that they do." "Then we won't," Admiral Russell said with a smile. "I'm putting Lieutenant Ward in charge of developing new tactics. We'll use Earth's asteroid belt and the gas giants to our advantage." Over the next few weeks, Earth transformed. Factories that once made cars now built spacecraft parts. Scientists worked day and night to improve weapons and shields based on what the frontier had learned. Professor Paul Grant, a brilliant physicist with wild gray hair, led the science team. He worked closely with Jack to understand Exilian technology. "Their ships are more advanced," Professor Grant explained during a meeting. "But they're designed to fight other advanced ships. We can use simpler methods they might not expect." Lieutenant Samantha Ward trained pilots to use guerrilla tactics in space. She set up courses in the asteroid belt where pilots learn to hide and attack quickly. "Don't try to outgun them," she told her students. "We need to outsmart them." Chief Engineer Kate Brooks led teams that converted cargo ships, luxury liners, and even mining vessels into warships. Her workshops ran day and night. "These won't look like warships," she explained to Admiral Russell. "That's the point. The Exilians won't know what to target first." Not everyone supported these efforts. As resources were directed to defense, some people protested the shortages of everyday goods. Officer Greg Thompson was put in charge of managing civilian concerns. "People are scared," Greg reported. "They need to understand what we're facing." Jack suggested a bold move. "Show them the truth. Release the footage from our first contact. Let people see what's coming." The videos were released. Seeing the massive Exilian ships and hearing Grand Admiral Zextor's threats, most protests stopped. Volunteers flooded the TDA recruitment centers. Meanwhile, Admiral Russell implemented Operation Scattered Storm. Instead of building a few large defense stations, she created hundreds of smaller bases throughout the solar system. Some were hidden in asteroids, others on moons or small planets. "The Exilians expect us to protect just Earth," she explained to her officers. "We'll defend the entire system." As the months passed, Jack often found himself looking at the stars at night, wondering when the Exilian armada would arrive. "Do you think we have a chance?" Professor Grant asked him during one such moment. Jack thought about the Exilians' rigid tactics and humanity's history of adapting to overcome stronger enemies. "Yes," he said finally. "They expect us to fight a conventional war. That's exactly what we won't give them." In deep space, Fleet Commander Krell led the first wave of the Exilian armada toward Earth. He had studied the reports about the human ship that had escaped. He was confident his forces would easily crush these primitive humans. After all, no species had ever defeated the Exilian Empire in its 10,000-year history. The humans would be no different. He was wrong. Fleet Commander Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship as the Exilian armada exited light speed at the edge of the Earth's solar system. 100 warships spread out in perfect formation, their silver hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight. "Begin standard invasion pattern," Krell ordered. "Advance toward the target planet. The Exilian ships moved forward in a precise arrow formation. Their scanners searched for Earth's defense fleet, expecting to find it gathered protectively around the planet. "Commander, we're detecting unusual readings," an officer reported. "Small objects scattered throughout the system." Krell frowned. "Identify them." "Appears to be some kind of automated defense platforms," the officer replied. "Very primitive. They pose no threat to our ships." Krell nodded. "Proceed as planned. Destroy any that block our path." The armada continued forward. Suddenly, dozens of the small platforms activated, firing not at the Exilian ships, but into empty space around them. Clouds of metal debris spread out, creating a dense fog that confused Exilian sensors. "What is this?" Krell demanded. "Clear the sensors." Before the Exilians could adjust, small human ships appeared from hiding places in the asteroid belt. They attacked quickly, firing at specific points on the Exilian vessels, then disappeared again. "They're not facing us directly," Krell said in surprise. "This is not proper combat." On the TDA command station orbiting Earth's moon, Admiral Russell watched the battle unfold on a large screen. Commander Jack Miller stood beside her. "Operation Scattered Storm is working," Jack said. "They're confused by our tactics." Admiral Russell nodded. "They expected us to meet them ship to ship. They don't understand why we won't stand and fight." Throughout the solar system, human forces implemented their unusual battle plans. Near Jupiter, a group of ships used the giant planet's gravity to slingshot themselves at incredible speeds past Exilian vessels, firing precise shots at their engine sections. Lieutenant Samantha Ward led a fighter squadron hidden in Saturn's rings. When Exilian ships passed by, her team launched surprise attacks, then vanished back into the icy particles. "Stay unpredictable," Samantha told her pilots over the radio. "Don't establish patterns they can learn." The Exilians had never faced such tactics. Their battle computers could not predict where the next attack would come from. Some ships began firing randomly into the debris clouds, hoping to hit hidden human vessels. Chief Engineer Kate Brooks monitored the battle from her station on Earth. She had designed many of the automated platforms now confusing the enemy. "They're reacting exactly as we hoped," she told her team. "They're wasting energy and resources trying to fight an enemy they can't see." Fleet Commander Krell became increasingly frustrated. Half a day into the battle, his perfect formation was scattered across the system as ships chased elusive human vessels. "This is not warfare," he shouted. "They hide like cowards instead of facing us honorably." An explosion rocked his flagship. A small human vessel had somehow gotten close enough to attack before speeding away toward Mars. In a bold move, Lieutenant Ward led a special team on a stealth mission. Their target, an Exilian scout ship on the edge of the battle. Using specialized equipment, they managed to board the alien vessel while its crew was distracted. "We need their tactical data," Samantha told her team as they moved through the alien ship, "and their communication codes." After a brief firefight, they secured the ship's bridge and downloaded valuable information before escaping. When the first day of battle ended, the Exilians had destroyed only a handful of human vessels, while losing 12 of their own ships. It wasn't the crushing victory Krell had promised Grand Admiral Xtor. "We will adapt to their primitive tactics," Krell insisted to his officers. "Tomorrow, we will advance directly to their home planet." Back at TDA Command, Admiral Russell studied the battle reports with satisfaction. "The first wave didn't go as they expected," she told Jack. "Now we move to Phase 2. "They'll be angry," Jack warned. "They'll come at us harder tomorrow." Admiral Russell smiled. "That's exactly what we want them to do." Major Frank Collins studied the holographic display of the Exilian command ship. His special operations team gathered around him in the dimly lit planning room deep inside the lunar base. "This is our target," Frank said, pointing to a section of the massive vessel. "The Exilian command center. We need to get in and plant these devices." He held up small silver discs that Kate Brooks' engineering team had created. They would tap into Exilian systems and feed false information to their battle computers. "How do we get on board?" asked a team member. "Their security will be tight." Frank smiled. "We're going to use what we learned from Lieutenant Ward's captured data. The Exilians don't expect anyone to board their ships. It's not in their war doctrine." On the other side of the lunar base, Officer Lisa Peterson worked with her communications team. The information from the captured scout ship had given them valuable insight into Exilian language and codes. "I've created an algorithm that can mimic their command signals," Lisa explained to Admiral Russell. "We can send false orders to their fleet." "Good work," Admiral Russell replied. "Make sure it's ready for Major Collins' mission." Meanwhile, Dr. Nancy Bell, a xenobiologist with short blonde hair and intense focus, presented her findings to Commander Miller and Professor Grant. "I've studied the Exilian biology and psychology," she said. "They evolved as herd creatures on a planet with few predators. They think collectively and follow strict hierarchies." Jack looked interested. "How does that affect their fighting style?" "They've never faced a species that evolved as persistent hunters," Nancy explained. "Humans developed to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're naturally more adaptable and unpredictable." Professor Grant nodded. "That explains why they're struggling against our hit-and-run tactics. They expect enemies to behave according to fixed patterns." This information helped shape the next phase of Earth's defense. While the main battle continued in space, Major Collins and his team launched their covert mission. Using a captured Exilian shuttle and faked identification codes, they approached the enemy flagship. "Remember," Frank told his team as they neared the massive ship, "move like you belong there. The Exilians don't question authority." The team successfully docked and entered the flagship wearing modified Exilian armor. They moved through the corridors, planting the small devices at key locations. "Security patrol coming," whispered a team member. 3 Exilians. Frank nodded calmly. "Act natural. Remember your training." The human team walked confidently past the Exilian patrol, who barely glanced at them. The aliens never expected infiltrators on their own ships. Back on Earth, Lisa activated her communication system. As Major Collins' devices came online, she began feeding false information into the Exilian network. Battle plans were subtly altered. Sensor readings showed human ships where there were none. "Confusion is spreading through their fleet," Lisa reported. "Their formations are breaking down." Commander Miller had been working on another important mission. Using the U.S. frontier, he traveled to a nearby star system to meet with representatives of the Meridians, another species that had been conquered by the Exilian Empire centuries ago. "Your resistance gives us hope," said the Meridian leader, a tall being with silvery skin. "For thousands of years, the Exilians have ruled through fear. No one believed they could be defeated." "We don't plan to just resist," Jack replied. "We plan to win. And we could use allies." The Meridian considered this. A direct alliance would be dangerous. "But we can provide information, perhaps even ships, if your efforts continue to succeed." In his command chamber aboard the Exilian capital ship, Grand Admiral Zextor received troubling reports. The human defenses were proving more difficult to overcome than expected. Fleet Commander Krell had failed to make significant progress. "This is unacceptable," Zextor said coldly. "I will take personal command of the invasion." He turned to his senior officers. "Commit 70% of the Empire's forces to this campaign. We will crush these humans with overwhelming power." What the Grand Admiral didn't realize was that his own flagship had already been compromised. Every order he gave was being monitored by humans. Every plan he made would be countered before it could be fully implemented. The main Exilian fleet arrived in a massive light flash. 2,000 warships filled the space between Mars and Jupiter. Grand Admiral Zextor had committed the largest invasion force in the Empire's history to crush the humans once and for all. "All ships advance," ordered Zextor from his command throne. "Overwhelm their outer defenses and push directly to Earth." The massive fleet moved forward like a silver tide. Earth's outer defense platforms were quickly destroyed. The automated drones and small fighter groups that had confused the first wave were simply overwhelmed by the sheer number of Exilian ships. On the lunar base, Admiral Russell watched the approaching armada with a calm expression. "They'd committed their forces exactly as we hoped," she said to her officers. "Now we activate Protocol Hydra." Throughout the solar system, hidden ships powered up. For months, the TDA had been placing sleeper vessels in unusual locations, inside hollow asteroids, beneath the ice of Europa, even hidden in the clouds of Venus. Now they all activated at once, attacking the rear and flanks of the Exilian formation. "What is happening?" demanded Zextor as reports flooded in. "Where are these ships coming from?" His officers had no good answers. The human vessels seemed to appear from nowhere, strike hard, and disappear again. Professor Grant activated his newest creation, the quantum ghost projectors. These devices created false sensor readings that made it appear as if human fleets were approaching from multiple directions. The Exilians spread out their forces to counter these phantom threats, weakening their main advance. Chief Engineer Kate Brooks unveiled her most daring innovation. She had retrofitted civilian mining vessels with special drilling equipment that could burrow into the hulls of Exilian capital ships. These ships now moved through the battlefield, attaching to enemy vessels and drilling through their armor. "They're inside our ships," an Exilian captain reported in panic. "This is not possible." Near Jupiter's moons, the largest space battle in the conflict erupted. Lieutenant Samantha Ward commanded a fleet of fighter craft that used Jupiter's rings in ways the Exilians could never have imagined. Her pilots collected ice chunks from the rings and accelerated them at Exilian ships, creating deadly projectiles that their shields weren't designed to stop. "Use the environment," Samantha called to her pilots. "Everything around us is a weapon." The Exilians had never fought this way. Their battles had always been about ship-to-ship combat, about bigger weapons and stronger shields. They didn't know how to counter enemies who turned the very space around them into a weapon. On Earth, Officer Greg Thompson coordinated with civilian ship captains who had volunteered for a dangerous mission. As Exilian ships broke through and began orbiting Earth to start bombardment, these civilian vessels rose from the planet's surface. "We're not fighters," said one old captain over the radio, "but we know how to get in the way." The civilian ships flew directly at the Exilian bombers, forcing them to change course or risk collisions. This gave military vessels time to engage and destroy the enemy ships. Despite these unexpected tactics, the Exilians pressed forward with their overwhelming numbers. Several ships broke through and began bombing Earth's surface. Cities were hit, and millions of people fled to underground shelters. "We can't hold them back forever," Jack told Admiral Russell as they watched reports of the destruction. "There are too many of them." Admiral Russell nodded grimly. "We don't need to hold them forever, just long enough for the final phase of our plan." She turned to her communications officer. "Contact Major Collins. Tell him it's time." On board the Exilian flagship, Major Collins received the message. His team had remained hidden for days, gathering intelligence and waiting for this moment. "Time to wake up the ghost in their machine," Frank said to his team. "Let's show them how humans fight when backed into a corner." The battle for Earth had reached its most critical point. The next few hours would determine the fate of humanity. Flames and smoke rose from cities around the world as Exilian ships continued their bombardment. Earth's defenses fought back fiercely, but the enemy had broken through in too many places. The situation was growing desperate. Commander Jack Miller stood on the bridge of the U.S. frontier, looking at the tactical display. A daring plan had formed in his mind. "We're going to board the Exilian flagship," he told his officers. "Sir, that's suicide," Alan Carter replied. "It's surrounded by hundreds of ships." Jack smiled grimly. "That's why they won't expect it. Lieutenant Ward discovered something in the data we captured. The Exilians can't fight effectively when their command structure is disrupted." While Jack prepared his mission, Professor Grant activated his experimental gravity weapon. The device, hidden on one of Mars' moons, created localized gravity distortions that pulled Exilian ships out of formation. They rely on perfect formations, Grant explained to the operators. Let's see how they fight when they can't stay in their neat lines. Across Earth's orbit, Chief Brooks and her engineers deployed their latest invention, solar mirror satellites. These devices captured solar energy and redirected it as powerful beams. The Exilian shields, designed to block explosive weapons, struggled against the continuous energy assault. On board the Exilian flagship, Major Collins and his team received Jack's message. After days of hiding and gathering intelligence, they were ready to act. Begin the sabotage sequence, Frank ordered. His team activated the devices they had planted throughout the ship. Critical systems began to fail. Weapons went offline. Communications between ships became scrambled. Grand Admiral Zextor raged at his officers as his perfect invasion fell into chaos. How is this possible? They are primitives. They should have surrendered by now. In the midst of this confusion, the U.S. frontier made its move. Using a cloaking technology developed from Exilian stealth systems, the ship approached the flagship undetected. Boarding teams ready, Jack announced as they came alongside the massive alien vessel. Remember, our goal is to capture Zextor, not kill him. Lieutenant Ward led the first team through the breach. They fought their way through the flagship's corridors, using tactics the Exilians had never seen before. While alien soldiers held fixed positions, the humans moved unpredictably, attacking from multiple angles. They're trying to board the command center. An Exilian officer warned over the ship's communication system. Zextor prepared to fight himself, drawing an ornate weapon. No human will take me alive. At that moment, sensors detected new ships entering the battle. Admiral Russell received the report with a smile. The Meridians have arrived. The Meridian fleet, led by the Allies Jack had secured, attacked the Exilian rear. Other species that had been watching the battle, inspired by humanity's resistance, joined the attack. Ships from a dozen conquered worlds struck at their longtime oppressors. Lieutenant Ward discovered something crucial during the boarding action. "Commander," she called to Jack over the radio. "They can't adapt when communications are severed. Each ship needs constant direction from above." Admiral Russell immediately understood the implication. "Target their communication arrays," she ordered Earth's forces. "Isolate their battle groups." As human forces implemented this strategy, the massive Exilian fleet began to fragment. Ships lost coordination with each other. Some continued fighting while others fell back in confusion. On the flagship's bridge, Jack faced Grand Admiral Zextor directly. The alien leader was taller than any human, with ornate armor and cold eyes. "Your primitive tactics cannot prevail," Zextor declared. "The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. "That's your weakness," Jack replied. "You haven't faced a real challenge in all that time. You forgot how to adapt." Behind Zextor, Major Collins and his team had reached the main control systems. They shut down the flagship's core power, plunging the bridge into darkness. When emergency lights came on, Zextor found himself surrounded by human soldiers. For the first time in the history of the Exilian Empire, a Grand Admiral surrendered. The news spread quickly through the fleet, causing confusion and disbelief. Ship by ship, the invasion force began to stand down. The battle for Earth had reached its turning point. The impossible had happened. Humans had defeated the undefeatable Empire. 1 year after the Great Battle, representatives from 30 different species gathered in a new space station orbiting Earth. The massive structure, named Unity Station, had been built as a symbol of the new galactic order that was emerging from the ruins of the Exilian Empire. Jack Miller, now bearing the title of ambassador, stood at the main window looking out at the gathered ships. Vessels of all shapes and sizes had come to participate in the historic meeting. "I never thought I'd see something like this," Jack said to Samantha Ward, who stood beside him. "So many different worlds coming together. All because we refused to follow the rules of warfare." Samantha replied with a smile. She now headed the new Galactic Defense Academy, where officers from many species trained together and shared tactics. The news of humanity's victory had spread quickly throughout the galaxy. The supposedly invincible Exilian Empire had been defeated by a species that had only recently developed space travel. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Planet after planet rose up against their Exilian rulers. The empire that had stood for 10,000 years began to crumble in a matter of months. In the main conference room, Admiral Russell led the discussions for a new galactic coalition. The Meridians, the Volari, the Nexians, and many other species that had suffered under Exilian rule now worked together to create something better. We do not seek to build another empire, Admiral Russell told the gathered representatives. The coalition will be built on cooperation, not conquest. Chief Engineer Kate Brooks had been busy with her own project. She now directed a massive technological exchange program. Species that had been kept isolated by the Exilians now shared their innovations freely. The Exilians maintained power by keeping us separate, Kate explained to a group of alien engineers. Together, we can advance far more quickly than any of us could alone. Professor Grant worked with Dr. Bell to study the ancient records taken from the Exilian capital world. What they discovered surprised everyone. Humans may have played a role in galactic history long before we realized, Professor Grant reported during a special meeting. There are references to beings very much like us who disappeared thousands of years ago, possibly taken from Earth by another species. This discovery led to new questions about humanity's place in the galaxy, questions that would take years to answer. Grand Admiral Zextor, now held in a comfortable but secure facility, received occasional visitors. Jack went to see him on the anniversary of the battle. I still do not understand how you defeated us, Zextor said. We had superior technology, superior numbers. Jack considered this. You fought the way you always fought. You couldn't imagine doing things differently. Humans have always had to adapt to survive. The former Grand Admiral looked out his window at the Earth below. Perhaps the Empire needed to fall. We had become stagnant. Not all was peaceful in the new galactic order. Some Exilian commanders refused to surrender, continuing to fight from distant outposts. Other threats lurked in unexplored regions of space. The newly formed coalition faced many challenges. But Earth was no longer alone. The tactics and adaptability that had saved humanity now protected their allies as well. Lieutenant Ward's Academy trained a new generation of officers who valued creativity over rigid doctrine. Officer Greg Thompson, who had coordinated civilian efforts during the invasion, now led a program helping planets rebuild from Exilian occupation. The same spirit that helped us survive now helps us build, he often said. As Jack looked around the conference room at representatives from across the galaxy, he remembered the U.S. frontier's first encounter with the Exilians. What had begun as a simple exploration mission had led to the reshaping of galactic civilization. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, Jack said in his address to the Coalition Assembly. Instead, we found an enemy that forced us to prove our worth. Now, having done so, we find that friends were waiting for us all along. The assembly hall erupted in applause. A new era had begun, one where humanity's unique approach to problem-solving would help guide the galaxy toward a better future.